Hello, I'm Anne Green, and welcome to We've Got Books. And boy, do we ever. We are two authors, myself, Anne Green, and James Yarborough. We are coming to you from the big sky country of the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. We'll be your hosts for We've Got Books, and we're excited to connect with you. We delight in telling you about our books, as well as interviewing other Christian fiction writers about their books. Our goal is to introduce you to some great Christian fiction. We'll focus on getting to know authors and discuss fiction of different genres. We have something for everyone. We'll sit around the table chatting to get to know each author and how his or her book was created. So, sit back and enjoy this joyful journey into the literary world. Today, Jim Yarborough is introducing Sue Fairchild and her fabulous novels.
Well, thank you, Anne, and welcome, Sue. So before we delve into information about one of your books, Sue, please tell us a little about yourself.
Well, Jim, I'm a writer, an editor, and a speaker. Last year, 2024, I traditionally published two Christian contemporary novels, one of which, Changing Tides, won the Advanced Writers and Speakers Association's Golden Scrolls Award, an honorable mention. And when I'm not writing my own books, I love working with clients who are also working toward the greater good of sharing God's message in the world.
Sounds like you're a busy lady, all right. How did you get started writing, Sue?
Well, I always loved reading and kept journals when I was younger, but I never really thought of being a writer as a career choice. When I joined my local church several years ago now, a woman in the Sunday school class told me something I had said would make a really good devotion. And I said, terrific, what's a devotion? I had no idea what that was. She said, you need to come to our writers group and I will show you how to write it and help you get it published. So I did that, and it was published in The Secret Place, which is a Judson Press publication. And of course, then I was hooked because you can get paid for writing things. That's great. And then I've just subsequently has transitioned over into editing. It's just something that I'm kind of good at. So I've been doing that, and that's been my main job now for about 10 years. So, but recently God has kind of showed me how I can both write and edit for his kingdom.
Well, every writer certainly needs a good editor. I can attest to that. So tell us about your genre and why you prefer to write in that genre.
Well, both of my novels from last year are Christian contemporary. Mainly, I've picked that genre because I like reading that genre, but also I think that a lot of people need to see in contemporary books characters that are relating to them. While I like fiction, I like historical fiction, and I like fantasy, I'm not geared to write those kind of things. So, and I really do like to explore everyday life and how people interact with each other in a modern setting.
Excellent. Well, what led you to write your two latest women's fiction books, Changing Tides and Changing Seasons?
Changing Tides came about as a result of a conversation that my husband and I often have. It sounds a little morbid to some people, but we often talk about who will die first. My ancestors are notoriously not long living, and his are. And he has always said, well, if you go first, then I'm going to live as a hermit and just cut myself off from all people and just work and go home, and that's it. I didn't really think that's probably the case if it happens, but I thought, how do men deal with grief? I want to explore that. So that's where Changing Tides originated. And Changing Seasons, a lot of my readers wanted to know what happens to Nora. Nora is a secondary character in the first book. And so I just started exploring that. I have a friend who's writing a book for people who are caregivers of Alzheimer's patients. So I wanted to delve into how Alzheimer's and dementia affects families and what's the grief involved with that.
Well, it's an interesting connection. Well, who is the main character in Changing Tides?
Changing Tides, main character is Gabe Peckman, and he's really modeled a lot after my own husband.
And who are the characters in your other book, Changing Seasons?
Changing Seasons is Nora. She's my main character and her family, essentially. She was a secondary character in Changing Tides. And like I said, a lot of my readers wanted to kind of know what happens to her at the end of Changing Tides. She leaves, and the story is kind of ended, I thought, for her, but people wanted to know what her story was. So that's how I started writing her story.
So it sounds like you may have a central theme for both of these books. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't think that I intentionally made this theme, but it has kind of come about that different grief journeys, Changing Tides especially. It's not just Gabe's grief journey. There's some of the other characters have some of their in there too. And again, that came from a conversation with my husband. But in my church, we have a lot of widows and widowers, and I'm seeing how they are, including my own father, and I'm seeing how they're dealing with life and how different they all deal with it, with the grief of losing their spouse. Often they live alone and they don't have as much interaction with people. That creates loneliness and isolation. So I wanted to explore that, but I wanted with a younger character because I know that it's not always older people that experience that loss. And I think there are, dealing with a lot of the same thing. Do they remarry? What about the kids? What does their life look like now? Do they stay in the same home? And I just think it's not limited to lost spouses or lost loved ones. There's other grief. So that's kind of how Changing Seasons came about, where she deals with a different kind of grief. She's dealing with, she hasn't lost her father yet, but she has in a way because he doesn't really remember her all the time. So she's dealing with that kind of grief. She's also dealing with a grief of not really her life ending up how she wanted it to end up. She wanted to have a much more adventurous life, and that isn't kind of possible now. But then she understands that God still has something in store for her. So that's the theme too, that even though we're going through these journeys of grief or trauma or loss, God is still with us along the way, and there's still a plan.
Those are important themes. Thanks for explaining that. What is the takeaway or takeaways you'd like readers to have from reading your books?
I really think that the main takeaway for me is that they're not alone in their grief or trauma. As I wrote both of these books, I met so many people that were going through the exact same scenarios, and it really talked to me about, you really captured the grief that I'm feeling. You really captured that feeling of loss and loneliness. So I think it's, even if you don't have family or friends, which some people don't, God is still there for you. He still has a plan. There's still, nothing is a surprise to him, and he has a plan for your life. We might not understand, but especially when we're going through grief, I believe if we submit our weaknesses or submit ourselves to him, he will help us be strong again and create beauty from those ashes.
So you've given us some background about what might have motivated you to write those two books. Any other details you'd like to share about your motivations there?
I think it did really, Changing Tides especially came from that wanting to know my husband better, but also wanting to know my dad's grief better. So people that are dealing with grief, friends, loved ones, I often said I should have been like a psychologist because I really love to understand people. I love to understand like how different people react differently to similar scenarios. So writing helps me get into different mindsets and explore different ideas. It helps me to have empathy for others, helps me to see people, I hope, how God sees people.
So apart from those two books, which sound really interesting, are you writing anything else right now?
I'm working on an Advent devotional right now. I'm hoping to have that out this year. It'll probably be self-published. It'll just be 25 days of devotionals centered around the birth of Jesus, of course.
Well, your other two books, Changing Tides and Changing Seasons, you've explained a bit already that some of these are, some of the characters maybe are fictional, but there are real characters in mind for you when you develop them. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, Gabe is pretty much a pretty close knockoff of my husband. And Gabe's character has a dog, Daisy. She is an exact knockoff of our dog, Daisy. But then other secondary characters are sometimes a blend of people I know, or sometimes similar to people I know, but I've put them in different scenarios or different time frames or different careers, maybe. So yeah, or sometimes I try and utilize a friend or a personality that I know and just give them maybe oomph it up just a little bit. Friend Jill, there's a character in Changing Seasons she's Nora's best friend and her name is Jill, but I've made her a little starchier. I've made her a little more flamboyant than my actual friend Jill. So I kind of use those as basis, and then if it's not suiting the character that I want it to be, then I, make some changes along the way.
That's the advantage of being a fiction writer, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So, how about telling our listeners about your most rewarding experience since publishing your 2 books?
Yeah, I kind of said that a little bit earlier, that the feedback that I get from some of my readers, when I was looking for an agent for Changing Tides, I was told that a male protagonist was a hard sell, meaning it would be hard to find a publisher because women readers don't want to read male protagonists, except I have not found that to be the case. Like me, other readers, they want to know what a male perspective is like. Now, I'm a woman, so writing a male perspective was, I'm not trying to say I got it spot on the head, but I asked my husband a lot of questions writing that book. So I think that just hearing people, and also hearing people tell me that the grief that I expressed in both books, that they understand that, it's all from Gabe's perspective, Changing Tides, which the agent didn't want me to do. But one of my reviewers actually said that she usually avoids male protagonist led stories, but after reading Changing Tides, she really wanted to read more male protagonist led. So that's kind of confirmation that I had done the right thing by listening to God and pushed forward with that, because the agent really wanted me to do it either with 2 different perspectives, male and female, making it almost a romance, which I didn't want, and or changing it completely over to a female. And I just said, no, I didn't want to do that. So I'm glad that God gave me that confirmation after the fact that I did the right thing by pushing. And with Nora's story, I don't have anyone with dementia in my family, but like I said, I have this friend who works with others, and so I gleaned from that. And I've heard so many people just say, "You really got this spot on. You really made that realistic." One reviewer said that I must have really done my research. That makes me feel good that I'm doing what God has called me to do. I'm being obedient to not just write words on a page, but dig into what the theme is and dig into how do people really feel, and to make my characters realistic. And so I want people to see that. And I really hope that both of my stories help others see that I did that, and that I care about their stories, and that God cares about their stories.
Great. I'm really pleased that turned out that way. It's great. And doing the research as you have done sounds like it really, really paid off for the realism of the story too.
Yeah.
So that's good. Well, other than sales, which are of course very nice, what do you hope to accomplish with your writing?
I really want to just share God's message with the world. I really want people to know that He cares about them. He loves them. I want people to understand what God is all about. I hope that I portray that well without kind of pushing it down anyone's throat. I know that can turn some people off from reading certain things. I want people to know that I care personally, because I do. When people read my book, like you said, the money is always nice, although we don't make a lot of money doing this job. I wouldn't have wrote those particular stories. I would have written something romance based or done what the agent told me to do. But I want people to understand that God is working through authors like myself and others to show them how much He cares. So I really want people to understand that. It's, of course, books are they are entertainment, but they can be more than that, especially fiction books. I know a lot of people use this fiction books as escapism, but, I just think that they should be sometimes signposts for anyone about how God can change their lives, even in the midst of grief and trauma and loss.
Who do you think would be interested in your books, the 2 books, and who should buy them?
Well, I think everyone should buy them, of course. But I really think that anyone who is dealing with either one of those 2 topics, loss of a spouse or a loved one, and they're not sure, what to do, or maybe feel like anyone cares. Also, dementia, same thing. Anyone who needs encouragement, anyone who needs to maybe. Often when we're in grief, we have blinders on and we're in this dark hole. And I don't think that we can even see sometimes how God is working. So I'm hoping through my characters they'll see, oh, I had a friend that was like that too. Now I see maybe that was God trying to help me. So anyone who needs encouragement or needs to know that God loves them, that's who I hope buys the book.
Good. Well, besides writing, do you have hobbies or other activities you normally do?
Yeah, as I said, I have a dog named Daisy. I'm an avid dog lover. We go out for walks every morning. That's something I started before I had her, and we've done it every day, almost any weather. I do love to read, of course, and I read a plethora of genres because I'm an editor, so I like to know different genres. And I also believe you must read to write and read everything you can get your hands on. I enjoy working with my church as a volunteer. We have community meals that I participate with, food for that, or I help serve. And yeah, just being with my husband, doing some traveling as well.
You're a busy lady. So how can people find you?
They can find me on my website, which is sueafairchild.wordpress.com, or any number of social media platforms. I'm on just about all of them. Instagram has been a favorite currently, so I'm Sue Fairchild Edits there. I do also write on Substack. Of course, my books are available on Amazon, and I do have a twice monthly newsletter for authors that gives some like industry tips. I talk about my own writing journey. I talk about some grammar and different things. And I also have a prayer usually in there for my readers.
You provide a lot of information. That's great to
I
know.
try to, yes.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think that just to know that you're not alone and that God sees you and understands you. And, you know, if you have your own story, I'd love to help you with that too, because that's what I do is help other people get God's message into the world. So I would love to help. But if it's just encouragement that you need, I hope that they find that.
Well, thank you, Sue, for sharing your background, your books, and for being on We've Got Books.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sue and Jim. I really enjoyed this quite interesting interview. But once again, our time has whizzed by. So we must say so long from deep in the heart of Texas and hope you enjoyed your time with us as much as we loved having you. Join us next week when we will spotlight well-known author Paula Peckman as we discuss her contemporary romance. Listeners, don't forget to go to buzzsprout.com to We've Got Books and enjoy some of our other podcasts with different authors. Their books are as distinct from one another as the authors who wrote them are unique. All of our podcasts are short, fun, and introduce you to authors and books. And you can find all the books we mention on Amazon. Look up the author's name and the book he discussed. So, this is Anne Green with James Yarborough saying, see y'all later and read a good book. We hope you'll choose one of the fabulous books you've heard about on one of our podcasts and keep exploring the world through reading. Reading reduces stress, sparks new ideas and interests, and improves your vocabulary. So keep reading. See you next time.